treating the dreaded Sunday scaries with, a ping pong table in the break room is, well, it's a lot like trying to fix a broken leg with a Band-Aid.
Right, yeah. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't. I mean, it might look a little more fun in the break room, but the research shows that something much more fundamental is broken in the employment relationship.
Exactly.
So today, we are unpacking exactly why you, or maybe someone you know, completely dreads Monday mornings and why those standard corporate superficial responses are failing so miserably.
They really are failing, and it's a massive global issue.
It is. Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking a really comprehensive research article by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover, PhD. It's titled When Monday Morning Dread Signals Deeper Dysfunction, Evidence-Based Leadership Practices That Transform Workplace Engagement.
That's a mouthful, but it's spot on.
It is. So we're going to dive into the evidence to see what it actually takes to build a workplace you genuinely want to show up to.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this.
I'm ready.
Before we diagnose the dysfunction, we kind of have to know what a healthy baseline even looks like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, looking at our visual backdrop today, shifting this to a towering wall of data and organizational charts behind me, it really reflects the scale we're dealing with here.
That is a lot of charts.
It is. But to establish that baseline, the research leans heavily on the foundational work of a psychologist named Wilmar Schofeli.
Okay.
And he draws a really important distinction. Engagement is not just happiness or, basic job satisfaction.
Right, because you could be satisfied just doing nothing.
Exactly. You'd be highly satisfied with a job that asks literally nothing of you, where you just coast along.
Yeah.
True engagement, though, according to his research, requires 3 specific elements: vigor, dedication, and absorption.
Okay, so vigor being the actual physical and mental energy you bring?
Yes, exactly.
And then dedication is your emotional commitment. And absorption is like that flow state where time just kind of disappears while you're working.
Precisely. It is an energized state of active investment.
Wow.
And the critical takeaway here is that engagement isn't just some fixed personality trait.
Okay.
It's a dynamic, fluctuating state. And it's deeply, deeply dependent on the environment you are placed in.
So let's talk about the current state of that environment, because the numbers in this research really put the scale of the problem into perspective.
They're pretty grim.
Yeah. We are talking about Gallup's 2023 global workforce data.
Right.
And it shows that only 23% of the global workforce is actually engaged.
Just 23%.
That is wild. Meanwhile, 59% are what the data calls quiet quitting, meaning they're just psychologically detached, doing the bare minimum to not get fired.
Yeah, just coasting.
And then a full 18% are actively disengaged, like they are essentially working against their organization's interests.
Which leaves us with this really profound question, right? How did we get to a point where nearly 80% of the global workforce is just running out the clock?
Yeah, right. But I do have to play the skeptic for you listening, because with almost 60% of people quiet quitting, you hear a lot of rhetoric out there that people are just, inherently lazier now since the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, you hear that everywhere.
Right. Or that nobody wants to work anymore. Is there anything to that?
What's fascinating here is that the data utterly rejects that idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to understand why people check out, we have to look at something called self-determination theory.
Okay, break that down for me.
So this theory posits that humans have 3 non-negotiable psychological needs if they are going to be engaged in literally anything.
And those are?
Autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Okay, autonomy, competence, relatedness. Explain those to me like I'm a beginner.
Sure. So think of autonomy as having your hands on the steering wheel, right? You need some discretion over how you actually do your work.
Makes sense. Nobody likes a micromanager.
Exactly. Then competence is the feeling that you are actually getting better at driving. You're developing mastery. You're growing in your skills.
And the last one, relatedness.
Relatedness is feeling a genuine connection to the people in the car with you.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. And when those 3 needs are met, human beings just naturally engage.
Yeah.
When they're thwarted, we detach to protect ourselves.
Right. And who is usually the one thwarting those needs? I'm guessing it's the person assigning the work.
The evidence points directly there, yes.
Yeah.
Gallup's longitudinal research tracks millions of employees over time, and they found that the manager-employee relationship accounts for up to 70% of the variance in team engagement.
Wait, 70%?
Up to 70%, right?
Yeah. So an individual's personal work ethic is really just a drop in the bucket compared to the environment their manager creates?
Exactly. People really don't leave bad companies. They leave managers who fail to actually see them.
Right.
They leave managers who micromanage and destroy autonomy or who fail to provide pathways for that competence we talked about.
Yeah, treating them like cogs in a machine.
Exactly. Treating them as resources rather than human beings, which just completely destroys relatedness.
Okay, so if 70% of the engagement variance falls squarely on the shoulders of managers, we have to look at the collateral damage here.
That's massive.
What is this epidemic of bad management actually costing organizations and, frankly, the employees themselves?
Well, the business case for fixing this is staggering. The research shows that highly engaged teams have 18% higher productivity.
18%.
Yeah, and 23% higher profitability.
Oh, wow.
But the real shocker is absenteeism. Engaged teams have 81% lower absenteeism.
81%. That's almost entirely eliminating people calling out.
Right.
But I mean, that makes intuitive sense, right? If you have high relatedness and autonomy, you don't wake up looking for an excuse to call in sick. You actually kind of want to be there.
Exactly. And when the work environment becomes so toxic that people don't just call in sick but actively quit, the financial bleed really accelerates.
Oh, because of turnover costs.
Yes. Replacing an employee typically costs anywhere from 50 to 200% of their annual salary.
That is insane.
It is. That accounts for recruitment, onboarding, and just the massive loss of institutional knowledge when they walk out the door.
Right. And I imagine in high-stakes environments, it's not even just about the money.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
In healthcare and manufacturing, for instance, engaged teams experience 41% fewer defects and 70% fewer safety incidents.
70%. So what does this all mean? An actively disengaged employee isn't just an idling car engine, you know. There's someone actively siphoning gas out of the tank while you're trying to drive.
That is the perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the real tragedy for the organization is who usually leaves first.
Oh, the good ones.
Exactly. Disengagement-driven turnover is highly concentrated among an organization's top performers.
Right, because they have the most options.
Precisely. They have the strongest resumes, the most recruiters blowing up their phones, and crucially, they are the least willing to tolerate incompetent leadership.
So an organization's failure to train its managers literally drives away the exact talent it desperately wants to keep.
Yes.
Okay, that definitely covers the organizational costs. But the research dives pretty deeply into the toll on the individual, right? Like, the Sunday scaries aren't just a fleeting feeling. They have measurable health outcomes.
They absolutely do.
Right.
Chronic disengagement is the primary driver of burnout.
Right.
And burnout isn't just, feeling tired at the end of the day.
No.
The clinical definition involves severe emotional exhaustion, a deep cynicism toward your work, and just a total collapse in your perceived professional efficacy.
Which is terrifying.
It is. We are talking about sustained spikes in cortisol levels. And that leads to increased cardiovascular disease risk.
Wow.
It compromises immune function, and it's heavily linked to depression and anxiety.
And it doesn't just stay at the office either. The research mentions work-to-family conflict spillover.
Oh, yeah. You literally carry that stress hormone cocktail home with you. And it fundamentally alters how you interact with your partner or, your kids. Your body is physically bracing for a return to an environment that just diminishes you.
Which is exactly why those superficial fixes we mentioned earlier, the pizza parties, the casual Fridays.
Right, the ping pong tables.
Yes, they feel almost insulting to an employee experiencing that level of physiological stress.
Seriously. Okay, so knowing the staggering stakes here, both financial and human, if the transactional management style, just tracking hours and output, is causing this, what does the evidence say we should do? How do we fix it?
The research points to two critical shifts for leaders. We have to move toward developmental leadership and authentic relational leadership.
Okay, developmental and relational. Let's tackle developmental first. The underlying mechanism here is social exchange theory, right?
Yes, exactly.
Let's demystify that term. What does social exchange theory actually look like in practice?
So in simple terms, it's just the psychology of reciprocity.
If a friend unexpectedly buys you a coffee, you naturally feel a compulsion to get the next round, right?
Yeah, of course.
Social exchange theory applies that exact human instinct to the workplace. If an organization genuinely invests in an employee's future, the employee naturally reciprocates with increased loyalty and, discretionary effort.
The article highlighted Salesforce as a really prime example of this working at scale.
Yes. Salesforce uses a platform called Trailhead. It provides extensive, totally free training to employees.
Right.
But the genius isn't just having a learning platform. Plenty of companies have those.
Right.
The difference is that Salesforce allocates time for this learning during paid work hours.
That is a massive distinction.
It changes everything.
Because honestly, if you tell me to upskill on my own time over the weekend, you're just giving me more work.
Exactly.
But if you pay me to learn during the day, you are proving that my growth is actually valuable to you.
And Salesforce takes it a step further. They evaluate and heavily weight management promotions based on how effectively a leader develops their team's careers.
Oh, wow. So employee growth is a core metric.
Yeah. Yes, it becomes a core competency of the manager, not just an afterthought.
Okay, so investing in someone's skills hits that developmental side.
Right.
But you could have a highly skilled, really well-trained employee who still feels completely isolated. How does a leader bridge that gap?
That's where authentic relational leadership comes in.
Okay.
This is about building what organizational psychologists call effective commitment.
Effective commitment.
Yeah, it's an emotional attachment to the organization that goes way beyond the paycheck. And you build this by knowing employees as individuals outside of just their immediate tasks.
The Mayo Clinic case study in the research illustrates this beautifully, doesn't it?
It really does.
Tell us about the Mayo Clinic, because doctors are historically trained to be intensely clinical and detached.
They are. But the Mayo Clinic realized that this detached leadership style was actually driving physician burnout.
Oh, wow.
So they started training their physician leaders to have what they called connection conversations.
What are those?
They're structured, regular discussions specifically designed to understand a team member's personal priorities, their life outside of medicine, their non-work challenges.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I can hear a lot of traditional managers panicking at this idea.
Oh, for sure.
Does this mean managers need to become therapists? Because most leaders are definitely not qualified for that.
It is a super common hesitation, but the research draws a hard line here. It is absolutely not about providing therapy.
Okay, good.
Actually, let's just visually shift our backdrop here for a second. Moving from that sterile cubicle to a warm, bustling, collaborative workspace.
Ah, much better.
Right. It's simply about treating people as multidimensional humans rather than interchangeable resources.
Right.
If an employee is dealing with a childcare crisis or an aging parent, a relational leader accommodates that reality. They adapt their communication.
Yeah, they treat them like a person.
Exactly. By simply acknowledging the human being behind the job title, you fundamentally alter the psychological contract. It stops being a mere transaction.
Okay, so we have a manager who actively invests in your development and treats you with basic human empathy. That is a huge step forward.
It is.
But the research highlights that even this isn't enough, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Because you can have a wonderfully empathetic manager, but if the company culture terrifies you into never making a mistake, or if your daily tasks feel utterly pointless, you're still going to check out eventually.
You absolutely will. Which brings us to the environmental catalysts for engagement: psychological safety and meaning making.
Okay.
Without these two elements, even the best manager will eventually hit a ceiling.
Let's start with psychological safety. The research references Amy Edmondson's work here, specifically talking about the danger of organizational silence. What causes an entire organization to just go quiet?
Fear. Pure and simple.
Really?
Yeah, organizational silence happens when employees withhold crucial information, like a flaw in a product, a safety risk, or even just a bad idea from the boss.
Right.
They stay quiet because they believe speaking up will damage their career or standing. Psychological safety is the shared belief that interpersonal risk-taking is actually safe.
And the gold standard example the article gives for institutionalizing this is Pixar, right?
Yes. Pixar is a masterclass in psychological safety.
What do they do?
They use a process called the brain trust during film development. So directors have to present their messy, unfinished work to a group of experienced colleagues.
Okay.
And the feedback is notoriously candid. I mean, it pulls absolutely no punches.
Okay, wait, that sounds terrifying, not safe. How does ripping someone's work apart build safety?
It works entirely because of the underlying power dynamic.
Yeah.
The critical rule of the brain trust is that the director retains full creative control. The review board cannot force a single change.
Ah. So it completely separates the helpful critique from hierarchical control.
Exactly. Because the reviewers have absolutely no power to fire the director or hijack the movie, the feedback is received as a genuine attempt to solve a problem.
Instead of a power play.
Yes. When you remove the threat of punishment, defensiveness drops, and massive creative risk-taking becomes possible.
That makes so much sense. Okay, now let's talk about the second catalyst, meaning-making, or connecting daily tasks to ultimate outcomes.
Pro-social motivation.
Right, pro-social motivation. But I have to push back a little here. Isn't purpose just a corporate buzzword for young knowledge workers?
What's a common perception?
Like, it's easy for an architect or a surgeon to feel purpose, but what about jobs that are just manual labor?
This raises an important question. It is a widespread assumption that purpose is a luxury for the C-suite or creative roles. But the research vigorously debunks this. The Cleveland Clinic case study proves that purpose is a fundamental human need across all roles, demographics, and career stages.
Unpack that Cleveland Clinic example for us, because the way they changed the mechanics of the job is fascinating.
It really is. So, the hospital leadership realized their environmental services staff, the custodians, had incredibly high turnover and low engagement.
Right.
Instead of just raising pay or throwing a pizza party, they completely reframed the role. They stopped calling the job cleaning and explicitly connected it to patient healing and infection control.
But wait, just changing a job title doesn't change the reality of mopping a floor. How did they make it real?
They changed the systems to match the new vocabulary. They gave the custodial staff advanced training in infection control.
Oh, that's smart.
And more importantly, they invited them into patient safety meetings alongside the doctors and nurses.
No way.
Yes. They shared concrete data and stories of patient recoveries, drawing a direct, undeniable line between a perfectly sanitized room and a saved human life.
Wow, they elevated the custodians from just people who clean up messes to active participants in healthcare.
And the metrics reflected that psychological shift beautifully.
Mm.
Retention soared, hospital-acquired infections plummeted, and overall patient satisfaction scores went way up.
That's incredible.
When you give someone a clear connection to the pro-social purpose of their work, engagement naturally follows.
So purpose and psychological safety are incredibly powerful levers. But that brings us to a structural problem.
Right.
Let's say you have a great manager who gives you safety, development, and purpose. What happens if that manager leaves?
That's the danger.
Or what happens when the broader economy tanks and the company faces a crisis? How does an organization ensure this culture actually survives stress?
You cannot rely on individual hero managers.
Right.
Empathy doesn't scale on its own. It has to be systematized into the organizational DNA. The research highlights 3 specific systems to ensure this survives.
And those are?
Transparent communication, distributed leadership, and continuous feedback cultures.
Let's break those down, starting with transparent communication. The article uses a great lighthouse metaphor for leadership during a crisis, right?
Yes. So during a storm of uncertainty, a leader must act like a lighthouse.
Okay.
A lighthouse doesn't stop the waves, and it doesn't pretend the storm isn't happening. It simply provides steady, reliable orientation. Leaders have to admit what they don't know and just practice radical honesty.
Patagonia's approach to budget cuts is a stellar example of this.
Absolutely.
Because usually when a company announces budget cuts, the rumor mill goes crazy, everyone updates their resume, and productivity grinds to a total halt. What did Patagonia do differently?
When they faced a severe market downturn, the executive team didn't hide in a boardroom to hash out layoffs in secret.
Right.
They presented the raw, unvarnished financial realities to the entire company. They explained the exact trade-offs they were considering, and crucially, they asked for employee input on how to navigate the shortfall.
They treated their employees like actual adults who could handle bad news.
And the result was counterintuitive but profound. Employee engagement actually increased during the downturn.
That's amazing.
By bringing employees inside the problem, they fostered a sense of shared ownership rather than panic.
That is the power of transparency. Now, what about distributed leadership? How do you systematize autonomy?
Distributed leadership means moving away from rigid command and control hierarchies and toward a coaching model.
Okay.
W.L. Gore, the company famous for Gore-Tex,
Yeah.
takes this to the absolute extreme with what they call a lattice organizational structure.
Wait, this is the company with no fixed job titles, right?
Exactly. No fixed job titles and no predetermined chains of command.
That sounds crazy.
It does.
Mm-mm.
Employees self-select onto projects based on where they believe they can add the most value. Leadership emerges situationally.
Wow.
You might lead a team for one project because you have the specific expertise, and then act as a regular contributor on the next.
It sounds chaotic to anyone used to a traditional corporate ladder, but it really forces leaders to actually earn their followers, rather than just relying on a title.
That's exactly.
Okay, the final systemic piece the research points to is how we handle performance evaluations. The data strongly suggests that the traditional annual review is actively harming engagement, right?
Yes, because an annual review is entirely backward-looking.
Yeah.
It's evaluative rather than forward-looking and developmental.
Right.
Organizations need systems where feedback is continuous, peer-driven, and focused on growth. Microsoft's cultural transformation under Satya Nadella is the textbook case study here.
Yeah, Microsoft used to be infamous for their forced ranking systems.
They were.
For you listening, a forced ranking is basically grading employees on a curve. A manager is required to rank their team, meaning a certain percentage must be labeled top performers and a certain percentage must be labeled the bottom, even if the whole team is fantastic.
Think about the game theory behind that structure.
It's terrible.
If my bonus or my job security depends on me being in the top 10% and your success threatens my spot on that curve, why would I ever share my best ideas with you?
Right, you wouldn't.
I am actively incentivized to let you fail. Forced rankings mathematically destroy psychological safety and collaboration.
Honestly, forced rankings sound like the Hunger Games of corporate management. Microsoft realized you can't build a collaborative team if everyone is secretly hoping their coworker fails. So how did they fix it?
They entirely eliminated the curve. They replaced the forced rankings with continuous feedback conversations that focus purely on learning and collaboration.
Nice.
They implemented peer recognition platforms so employees could reward each other for helpfulness. They shifted the entire systemic incentive structure to reward a growth mindset rather than punishing the bottom 10%.
So synthesizing everything we've uncovered today,
Yeah.
this deep dive reviews that the Monday dread isn't just an inevitable part of being a working adult.
No, it's not.
It is a highly specific symptom of a workplace that violates fundamental human psychology. The cure isn't a casual Friday or an espresso machine. The cure is leadership that acts as a developer of human potential, not just an extractor of performance. It requires autonomy, competence, relatedness, psychological safety, and actual systems that treat people like adults.
And this is where we encourage you to evaluate your own reality. Look closely at your environment this week.
Yeah.
Whether you are a leader directing a team or an employee navigating your daily tasks, ask yourself, are the systems around you built for control and compliance, or are they built for coaching and growth?
That's the real question. And if you realize you are stuck in a transactional environment, here is a final provocative thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
The research is unambiguous. The manager-employee relationship accounts for 70% of the variance in your engagement.
Not to 70%, yeah.
So if that one single relationship dictates your burnout risk, your career growth, and your Sunday scaries, shouldn't the ultimate career hack be interviewing your future manager just as rigorously as they interview you?
Yeah.
Next time you are up for a role, consider making your priority not just the base salary or the prestige of the brand, but actively testing that specific manager for the coaching, relational, and psychological safety traits we just discussed.
Because if they don't have them, no amount of free pizza in the break room is going to fix the deeper dysfunction.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It has been a pleasure unpacking this research with you. Take care.